Hello, John Dove here from Advocacy Club, and we've just had the debating session. So tonight our members have been debating all about what's better, beach holidays or city breaks. So what I'm going to do now is just share some general tips and some general feedback in relation to debating. So I'm going to start with some sort of specifics for debating itself, and then move on to some sort of general tips that are relevant for public speaking and, of course, any form of contentious advocacy. So the first piece of advice I'm going to give for debating is to have a structure. I think a structure is important because it helps you sort of frame your mind when it comes to A, planning for the submissions, and B, presenting the submissions. But it also helps to deliver them in a clear way and makes it easy for your judge, if you've been judged in a debate, and anyone listening to follow along and follow in a logical manner. And I think that really you can keep your structure nice and simple. So, as with anything else, as with most things, and I think I've said this before: intro, main body, conclusion. So, tell someone what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you've just told them in very basic terms. So, within your introduction, it doesn't need to be anything, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. It can be as simple as, introducing which side you're acting for. So, I'm here to propose the motion, whatever the motion might be. Within my submissions, I'm going to make 3 points, which are bang, 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 make them in one sentence, and then you can jump into your main body. And then once you've made all of your points, you'll come to your conclusion and say, and for the reasons that I've set out, I would submit that this house should, follow the motion, whatever it might be. So really, really simple at the end. With something like this, of course, you only had 5 minutes for your submissions. So I would say, you probably don't want to take up more than 20, 30 seconds with the intro, and likewise the conclusion as well. So it gives you a little over 4 minutes to sort of develop your argument. So in that time, you probably really only want to be making 2 to 3 points, because of course you want to add some substance to those points, and you don't want to list 10 things and not really give any weight to each. Each time you make a point, if possible, support it. So just like if you were making, legal submissions in a moot or something of that nature, you would back up anything you're going to say with case law. Likewise, in a debate, try and back up what you can say. So, of course, this isn't a legal argument, so we're not talking about law here, but whatever it is, if you can back it up with studies, if you can back it up with research, if you can back it up with data, statistics, whatever it might be, if you can find something that supports your argument, obviously it adds weight to what you're saying. And in the lead up to a debate, if you can read around the topic as well, the more knowledgeable you become on that topic. That will come through in your submissions anyway. But B, if you receive any questions from left field, hopefully with having some prior reading around the topic, you'll have more scope to answer those questions. And then lastly, just in terms of preparation, you might want to think about what your opponent might be saying. So what the strengths of their side are, what the weaknesses in your side are. And of course, this is something I talk about all the time, specifically in relation to judicial intervention for legal arguments. But, think about what it is that your opponent is going to say and anticipate that. It might be that you can close off those arguments within your points themselves, or it might be you'd anticipate that would be a question through a point of information, so it's something that you can anticipate so that you can deal with. But it's always helpful to think about what your opponent's going to say and how you would deal with those points. This video is brought to you by Speed Mooting. We are an organisation that help aspiring and junior lawyers. We run online and in-person advocacy and mooting competitions. We do online advocacy and public speaking training, and we run lots of other events to assist people on their legal journey. To learn more, visit our website, speedmooting.com. In terms of general presentation tips, it's I come back to it again, and I say this all the time, but speaking slowly, it is key. Number one, it makes you sound really authoritative. because when you speak slowly, you don't sound flustered, you sound like you know what you're talking about, and you become very persuasive. Secondly, it makes it very easy to follow. If you speak at a million miles an hour, it's difficult for people to follow what you're saying. So if you're being judged and they're taking notes, it's difficult for them to follow. Likewise, if you've got, sort of spectators there, it's difficult for them to really take the points. So that's why it's important to speak slowly. And then lastly, when you speak more slowly and you're a little bit more sort of deliberate, you've got time to think about what you're saying, and you can, and I think that that's helpful for you, and particularly when it comes to responding to a point of information whereby you might be speaking off the hoof. Speaking just that little bit more slowly just gives you more time to develop the point and develop your chain of thinking as you're going along. Practicing is absolutely crucial. So what I would say is, in the lead up to a debate, practice your submissions several times. Number one, it means that you're going to be a lot more dynamic because hopefully you're not going to be tied to a script. Secondly, if you do need to move around because you might get a question midway through and you have to jump around to different points, the more you practice, the more you are familiar with your material, and the easier it is for you to be able to jump around. And then lastly, because you've practiced several times and hopefully you had some really good or given some good deliveries, in your own time, etc., of the presentation, then you'll have that confidence. You've got the ability to do it, and it just gives you that boost in the lead up to the debate itself. If ever you make a significant point, always remember to pause afterwards. It just lets that point just hang there, and just it tells your audience that was a significant point. It lets them sort of ponder, and it lets it percolate there. I think keep it simple as well. So there's often a tendency when it comes to advocacy presentations, public speaking, there can be a tendency with some people to want to sound clever and want to throw in big words just for the sake of it. And personally, I don't really see that that's a great strategy to go down if you're going to use language that you wouldn't normally use. So don't feel the need to use big words just for the sake of it. Keep it simple. Number one, a simple point is the easiest point to follow. And secondly, if you're using language that you're not used to, you've got more chance of tripping yourself up, making life hard for yourself. So there's no benefit to doing so. Be yourself, be authentic, and keep it simple. I mean, of course, if your style is naturally to be able to use a more complicated language, then of course do so. But don't try and change your style just for the sake of it. And then lastly, and I suppose this comes back to structure that I was talking about before, put your best point first. There's no point making a weaker point and then moving on to a stronger point at the end. Start with your best point first. So they're just some tips in relation to debating that I hope you've found helpful.
Enjoying our videos? Then we'd be super grateful if you could take a moment and subscribe to our channel.